Okay, we have made it to our last section of assignment 2, the Dragon game. And in this video we're going to create the in-game UI. That's the third part of the requirement for assignment 2. In the in-game UI we're going to add some score text and disable the default display of score in the toolbar. We're going to add a health bar for the player and then a way for that health of the player to go down and end the game when the health reaches 0. And we're going to display how many baby dragons have been saved by the mama dragon, and we'll end the game when 20 babies have been saved. So let's get right to it. We're going to learn a lot of new things while putting this together. First off, you need to make sure that your copy of GameMaker is running in advanced mode. You'll need to have that so that we can access some of the functionality we're going to need. If it's not in advanced mode, go ahead and switch it to advanced mode. When you do that, it will say that GameMaker needs to be restarted, so go ahead and restart it in advanced mode. Once you're in advanced mode, the first thing we're going to do is to add some fonts to our game so that we can display the in-game UI. Go up to the toolbar and select the Create a Font button. Give your font a name. I'm going to create 2 fonts for this tutorial. You can use 1 or 2 or whatever you want to do for your own version of the assignment. I'm going to create one font that will be for showing the score, so I'll call this one Font Score. And for now I'll just use the Arial font that it defaults to. I'll change the size though. Bring it up 20, you'll see the preview of what it looks like right here. And I'll create one more font. And this will be the font to display how many babies have been saved so far. I'll make this one a little bit bigger font, but I'll keep the type of font the same. One thing quickly, as I'm creating these fonts, you'll see in the font window that you can select a character range. For now, just leave it to what it defaults to, which is the normal set of characters. That includes all the letters and the most common symbols and the numbers. There really isn't a lot of reason to mess with the character range. It's mostly beneficial if you want to reduce the number of characters in your file. That it does make the file size of your game smaller, but we're not really worrying about that now, so just stick with the default. Okay, we've got a couple of our fonts. Next we're going to create an object that is going to essentially control all of the in-game UI. And it's going to be an object unlike all the other objects in this game. We're going to create an object that has no sprite associated with it. It's going to be an invisible object. So let's go ahead and create that now. And I'm going to call this one obj underscore controller, as this is the object that will control all of our UI. I'm going to do a create event like I usually do. And for the create event, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that the score, the player score, will not appear in the top frame of the game, which it does by default. So in the score action palette, come down to the very bottom in the health section to the last icon and drag it over. This allows you to set whether or not the score will show, and I'm going to change it from show to don't show, and then say OK. Next, what I'd like to do is I'm going to now define a variable that will store information about how many baby dragons the player has saved in the game so far. So for people who aren't in programming, variables are pretty simple. They're just a way to give your game a long-term memory, allow it a way to store information that can then be used later on to perform some actions inside the game. GameMaker comes with some built-in variables already, and we're looking at them on the screen right now. The score is a variable, keeps track of the score. Lives keep track of lives, and health keeps track of the player's health. Those are built in. We're going to use a couple of these in this game, but before we get to them, we're going to create our own variable. So let's do that now. Go to the Control tab on the Actions palette and come down to the Variables section and drag over the first icon. This is the Set Variable icon. We're creating our own variable now, and you want to give your variable a name that makes sense to you and reflects what it is the variable is actually doing, what information it's storing. So we're going to be storing information about how many babies are saved. And so I'm going to call it babies_saved. And I'm going to set the value to 0, because so far we haven't saved any babies. What we're doing really here is not just setting the variable, we're actually creating the variable and defining the variable and setting it all in one action. This will be important later on to understand what's happening here when we add an event and an action to another object in the game that will check to see how many babies have been saved and perform some action. So it's good to know. And last but not least, on our create event, we are going to come back to the score tab and we're going to set the player's health. So I'll drag over the set health action and I'm going to set the initial health to 100 and say OK. So we're done with our create event. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a step event. A step event is something that happens each moment of the game. Continuously happens again and again and again quite frequently, and you can use step events in order to check the state of a game at a given moment and then to perform actions based on the state of the game at a given moment. So let's create our step event. Inside the step event, we're going to do quite a few things. First of all, we're going to check the player's health. So on the same score tab, go down to the health section and choose the draw health. I'm sorry, not draw health. We're not doing that yet. We're going to check the health. Come down to the check health action. And what we're going to check for is if the health is 0. If the health is 0, what does that mean? It means the player is dead. And so what happens when the player is dead? We want the game to end, and we'll show a high score table, and then we'll restart the game too. So let's do that now. So I'm going to check if the health is equal to 0. Now I said that we're going to show a high score table, and we're going to restart the game. So that's a couple of actions we want to occur. When we have more than one action occurring after a check, we're doing a health check here, we need to add in a special action icon to make those two actions work. So if we go to the Control tab and come to the middle section, you'll see these little up and down arrows. We're going to use these now. One is a start block and one is an end block. And we use the start block to say to GameMaker, I want you to do more than one action following this start block. And what we want GameMaker to do is to show our high score table, and we want GameMaker to restart the game. Once I've listed all of the actions I want to occur with this health check, then I need to come back and add a end of block. So now we have created our health test. We're going to do something similar now by testing whether or not the player has saved 20 baby dragons. To do that, we'll stay on the Control tab of the Actions palette and come down to the Test Variable action. We need to tell it which variable we're testing, which is babies saved in my case, and we're going to check if the value is equal to 20. And then we're going to perform the same pair of actions. So I'll do another start block, and again I'll show the high score table. And again, I'll restart the game. And I'll add in a close block or an end of block. We've got one more event and a couple more actions to add. Our next event is going to be a draw event. So select Add Event and choose Draw. Here we're going to do a few things in order to set up and display the score, the number of babies saved, and the health bar. First off, we're going to come down to the Draw tab, and we're going to go to the Settings section, and we're going to let GameMaker know which font we want to display for the first text that we're going to draw on screen. And I'm going to do the, let's do the babies saved font, and I'll leave the alignment to left. Next, I want to tell GameMaker what color I want that font to be. Since my background in the game is fairly dark, I'll choose a bright color, so I'll choose yellow for mine, and say OK. So we've set the font and we've set the color. Now we can go ahead and actually draw the text on the screen. The text we're going to draw, it's a little tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'll paste in the text that I'm going to use, and then I'll walk through what it is I've just done and what we're going to display on the screen. Okay, what we want to show on the screen is the phrase babies saved, and then a colon, and then the number of babies saved, followed by a / and then the number 20. So babies saved 3 out of 20, 4 out of 20, and so on. In order to do that properly in GameMaker, we need to tell GameMaker which part of what we're going to display is just regular old text, and which part is the text version or the string version of a variable. We defined a variable, remember, called babies saved, which is a number. In order for that number to show up on screen, we're going to have to change it from a number into a little piece of text, into a string, and use some special punctuation to make all of that happen. In order to show regular old text, when we're mixing that text with a variable, we need to add single quotes around the text. You can see here that I've got babies saved and a colon, and then before and after it, I've got a single quote. Then after that, in order to also display the variable, we have to use a plus sign. It's actually got a different, sort of fancier name in programming, but for now we'll call it the plus sign. And then we want to show our babies saved variable. And so in order to make that happen, I'm going to use this function called string, and then I'll have parentheses, and then inside I'll list the name of my variable, babies saved, and then a close parentheses, and then another one of these pluses that has another name in programming, followed by a single quote, a / the number 20, and then another single quote. Assuming we did all that correctly, our score and the text that goes with it will appear on the screen. We also need to tell GameMaker where on screen we want that information to appear. In my case, I'm going to put it up on the top left corner of the screen. So this X and Y, these are pixels and pixel positions that start from the upper left-hand corner of the room in your game. And so X means how far across am I going to come, so 20 pixels across, and then Y is how far down I'm going to start, so 10 pixels down from that left corner. When you create your own version of Assignment 2, you'll want to do a lot of messing around with the position of the UI that you place in your game, and the fonts and everything else, to get it looking the way that you like best. Next, what I'd like to do is tell GameMaker to draw the health bar. So I'm going to come back to my score and come down to the health section, and now we can use this draw health action. And what I need to do, of course, is tell GameMaker where I want that health bar to exist. So I'm going to set the X to 320 and the Y to 20, and then 460 and 45. What we're doing here is both telling GameMaker where we want that to appear and how big we want it to be. All right. Again, you'll want to play with this because you can decide for yourself how big you want your health bar to be and where you want it to appear. I won't mess with the other settings. I'll just mention that this bar color means when I choose green to red, that the bar at 100% health will be green, and as it reduces the health, it will slowly shift in color to red. Alright, now we are going to draw our baby save information. We're going to draw our health bar. We also need to draw the player's score, so let's do that next. What I'm going to do is go back to my draw section, and I'm going to change to the other font that I created. So I'll come down to the set font again, and I'm going to set this font this time to the score font, and I'll leave the alignment as left. Then, now we've got the other font selected, so now I'm going to draw the score. And so we can go back to the score tab, come up to this icon here which says draw score, drag it off over here, and yet again we need to tell GameMaker where on screen we want the score to be shown. I'm placing it sort of in the middle and near the bottom of the screen. Again, you'll want to play yourself to get it set up just so, based on your own preference. Alright, so let's save all of that. That was a lot for our controller object. There are a few more things we need to do to make everything work appropriately. You know, we've set things up now so that we will have the health at 100 and we'll have the number of babies saved to 0. We're checking to see when health reaches 0 and babies saved reach 20, but we don't have anything yet inside our game that will actually make the health go down, and we don't have anything that will any events that will cause the number of babies saved to go up. So we need to do that next. Let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so let's come back to our objects and open up the demon object first. Come over to the collision event with the dragon. And what we're going to do is add, well, we're going to do a couple things. When we put together the game first, we use this dragon object as a way of ending the game. Basically, if the demon ran into the dragon, then the dragon was killed and the game would end. So we already put in a couple of actions. We're going to change that now. We're going to actually get rid of these two actions and replace them with something else. So we can get rid of those actions. Now instead what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that when the demon collides with the dragon, the dragon's health will decrease. So let's do that now. Go to the score section and come down to the health, the set health action, and then choose a negative number to decrease the value of health, making sure that you choose relative. Your game will be easier or harder for the player to finish, or your level of the game, depending on how the size of this number. The larger the negative number, the faster the health goes down, and the sooner the game will end. For now, I'll make it -5. One more thing we want to do is, if the demon runs into the dragon, we want to destroy the instance of that demon so that it disappears from the screen. So from the main 1 tab, select the destroy instance, and then the demon will disappear. That's all we need to do there. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to modify our baby object in a similar way. So open the baby object, come to the collision with dragon event. And now what we're going to do is we're going to modify our baby's saved variable. So come down to the control tab, choose the set variable action and drag it on over. Tell it which variable you're going to change. In my case, it's called babies_saved. I'm going to add one baby being saved each time the little baby dragon runs into the mama dragon. Now here's a very important thing that you'll need to do here. In this case, you'll remember earlier that we set the baby's saved variable inside our controller object. That's sort of where that baby's saved variable lives. In this case, if we're going to change that original variable, we need to tell this action here where that original variable is. So we need to do a couple of steps to make that happen. First, because we want to add one baby save to the current baby save variable, we want to choose relative. And if you come up to this section where it says apply to, choose object, and then select that controller object. This way, when the collision event occurs and then this set variable action is called, the first thing it will do is go look at that collider object, and it will hunt for the variable called babies saved. And if it finds it, then it will increase it by 1. If it doesn't find it, it'll give an error. Okay? That's all we need to do with that. We should now be okay. Let's save and test and see what we've got. Okay, we start our game. I'll move our dragon down out of the way. Ah, we're not seeing it yet. Can anybody tell me why? Can you guess why we don't see our in-game UI? It's a pretty easy reason. If I come down to our first room, right now we've got our room in place, and we've created our controller object that is going to actually cause our UI to show up. But you know, we haven't actually placed the object in the room, so we need to do that. So with the room open, make sure that you're on the Objects tab. Come down and select the object controller from the list. And then click somewhere out in your room to place that object. Doesn't matter where because it's invisible. And save it, and then we'll try it now and see if it works. Now we can see it there. We see our score, we see the health bar, we see all this stuff happening. There is another thing that I'd like to change. If you look at the screen, you'll see that the little baby dragons and the demons are flying in front of our UI. We don't really want that. I'll have to say it looks kind of cool. We want the UI to appear in front of everything else, so we'll do that in a moment. Let's make sure that everything else works. So I can fire at the demons and I get some points. When I save my baby dragons, then it adds up in the baby saved section. And if I were to continue playing and reach the point where I got 20 babies, then the game would end appropriately. So as one last piece, let's go ahead now and make sure that our UI is showing up in front of everything else. So open up your controller object. And on the controller object, if you look on the left-hand side, there is a setting called depth. We're going to set this to -1, and in doing that, it'll make it appear in front of everything that has a depth that's higher than -1. So say OK, and then now the UI will appear in front of everything else in the game, which is the way it usually works in games that you play. You don't want the UI hidden. Alright, so, oh, I killed my poor little baby dragons here. Alright, so now you can see they're showing up behind. I'm saving some babies, but I'm also getting clobbered by these guys. You can see my health dropping each time I do it. Alright, that's it. That's all you need to do for assignment 2. I guess I shouldn't say that's all you need to do. That's a ton. Please get to work on it, and good luck. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Please notice that in the scoring for Assignment 2, there is a possibility of earning up to 5 bonus points. Please look at the PDF for the specific features that you would add in order to get those bonus points. You're on your own in terms of figuring out how to make those features work. But if you can get in there, if you have time to get in there and figure it out, I encourage you to do it as a way of earning some extra credit. Good luck, and again, I look forward to seeing what you come up with.